career was being systematically dismantled, and the person holding the wrecking ball was my charming, smiling colleague who offered me coffee every morning while he secretly dismantled my life's work. He watched me burn with a look of perfect sympathy. And this is the story of how I threw a bucket of gasoline on his little game and exposed him in front of everyone he'd ever fooled. I'm a project manager at a high-pressure tech firm in downtown Austin. My world is one of Gantt charts, deadlines, and the quiet satisfaction of herding chaos into order. For nearly a year, I was at the helm of a project we called Odyssey. This wasn't just another app. It was a complete digital transformation for a national healthcare network, the kind of project that lands on the cover of industry magazines. It was my baby, my masterpiece. A success here meant a direct path to a vice president role and the kind of professional capital that lasts a lifetime. My team was a dream, a curated group of the company's sharpest minds, and for the first few months, we were unstoppable. Then the weirdness began. It was subtle at first, like a faint, discordant note in a symphony. A finalized set of user interface designs would suddenly be corrupted, setting our front-end team back by 2 days. A critical piece of server code, tested and signed off on a Friday, would mysteriously fail to compile on Monday morning, riddled with errors that made no logical sense. We'd slip on a minor deadline, then a major one. Each time I'd rally the team, we'd pull an all-nighter or a weekend shift, and we'd claw our way back. I told myself it was the price of ambition. High-stakes projects breed stress, burnout, and human error. I made excuses to my superiors and to myself, but the incidents kept coming, and they grew sharper, more precise. It stopped feeling like bad luck and started to feel like targeted strikes. The breaking point arrived 1 week before a critical milestone presentation to the client's board of directors. We had a functional demo, a beautiful, seamless piece of work my lead engineer, and I had personally smoke-tested until the early hours of the morning. I came into the office the next day to find him just staring at his screen, his face a pale shade of green. An entire database of anonymized patient data, the very fuel for our demo, had been erased. Not corrupted, not moved. Vanished. The fallout was a swift and public humiliation. I stood in our largest conference room in front of our executives and the client's team, and had to explain that a catastrophic data loss had crippled our demo, and I had no good explanation for it. The looks I received were a toxic cocktail of pity and crushing disappointment. My boss, Mr. Davenport, a man who valued results above all else, cornered me afterward. "Sarah," he said, his voice dangerously quiet, "I don't know what's going on with your team, but you're making this entire company look incompetent. Fix it. Now." That was the moment the fear calcified into rage. I wasn't incompetent. My team wasn't sloppy. We were being attacked. That night, I went home, and with a cold knot of certainty in my stomach, I decided to stop being the victim and start being the hunter. My first move was to go off the grid. I created a shadow system of documentation. Every file, every line of code, every design asset was now backed up nightly to a personal, encrypted solid-state drive I kept in my purse. I started a meticulous, time-stamped journal, documenting every anomaly, every conversation, every strange occurrence. I began staying late, long after the office emptied out, sitting in the silence under the dim glow of the security lights, just watching. And that's when I started to notice him. Ethan, he worked in marketing, 2 floors below us. On paper, he had zero reason to be anywhere near our development zone or have any professional intersection with Project Odyssey. But he was always around. He'd be in our division's kitchenette, getting a sparkling water late at night. He'd take the long way to the restroom, a scenic detour that took him right past my team's desks. He was handsome, impossibly charming, the guy who ran the company's March Madness pool and brought in donuts for no reason. We were on friendly terms, but looking back, his friendliness always felt like a performance. A specific memory surfaced, suddenly chilling in this new context. A few weeks earlier, I'd been complaining about a stubborn bug we couldn't squash. He had listened with a furrowed brow, placing a hand on my arm in a gesture of solidarity. "Wow, Sarah, that sounds intense," he'd said, his voice dripping with faux empathy. "I honestly don't know how you manage that level of pressure. Takes a special kind of person, I suppose." At the time, I took it as a compliment. Now I could hear the subtle poison in his words, the suggestion that perhaps I wasn't that special kind of person after all. Coincidences happen, but patterns tell a story. I needed to connect his physical presence to our digital disasters. I dedicated an entire weekend to my new obsession. I dove into months of archived company chat logs, email threads, and server access records. Our company's system, thankfully, logged every time a shared file or server directory was accessed, and by whom. It was a painstaking process, cross-referencing the exact time of each project setback with the system logs. My heart hammered against my ribs with each new discovery. There it was. Tuesday, 11:13 p.m., the night our UI kit was corrupted. A single access to that specific folder from outside my team's user group, Ethan M. Friday, 1:40 a.m., hours before a key algorithm was sabotaged. A remote login to the development server, traced to a marketing department IP address. Ethan M. Again and again, his digital fingerprint was at the scene of the crime. He was exploiting a loophole, a general access privilege granted for cross-departmental marketing initiatives, to slither into our project's digital heart. He was clever, never deleting a master file himself. Instead, he would introduce a tiny, fatal flaw, a corrupted dependency, a single malformed line of code, making it look like a technical glitch or human error. It was a masterpiece of insidious cruelty. But I knew this evidence, as damning as it was, could be dismissed. A charismatic charmer like Ethan could talk his way out of it. "Oh, I must have clicked the wrong folder in the directory," or "Gosh, our network is so confusing." I needed something he couldn't deny. I needed to catch him with his hand in the cookie jar. So I built him a cookie jar. I brought my lead engineer, Ben, the only person I now trusted completely, into the fold. Together, we crafted a digital honeypot. We created a dummy document, completely empty on the inside. But we gave it the most irresistible name we could imagine, something that screamed confidential, financials, and executive only. It was the kind of file a jealous, ambitious employee would find utterly impossible to ignore. The real trap, of course, was an invisible tracking macro embedded in the file. The instant it was opened, it would silently send an alert to a private server Ben set up, logging the user ID, their IP address, and the exact timestamp. Then I dangled the bait in plain sight. In our team's main Slack channel, a public space I knew Ethan occasionally monitored, I posted a carefully worded message. "Team, urgent. Please do not open or move the new bonus structure document. It contains highly sensitive financial projections directly from Mr. Davenport and is for my review only before our Monday leadership sync." I made it sound forbidden, exclusive, and explosive. I didn't have to wait long. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I was trying to distract myself at a coffee shop when my phone buzzed with an alert from Ben. The trap had been sprung. User ID, Ethan M. IP address. A residential connection from a neighborhood in South Austin where I knew he lived. He had taken the bait from his own home on a weekend. The log showed he had opened our dummy file, but the final, perfect nail in his coffin was what came next. The log showed he had then attempted to copy the file to a USB device, a flagrant violation of company data policy. About an hour later, another log entry appeared. The file had been deleted. He had opened the trap, realized it was empty, and in a panic, tried to scrub the evidence of his trespass. A wave of cold, crystalline victory washed over me. I had him. The next morning, I emailed Mr. Davenport's assistant and requested an urgent, in-person meeting. I walked into his office, sat down across from him, and placed my laptop on the polished mahogany of his desk. I didn't speak. I simply opened a presentation I had prepared. It was a timeline of every act of sabotage, each one paired with a screenshot of the corresponding server log. I laid out the whole ugly story, culminating in the beautiful, undeniable data from my digital sting operation. I watched his expression shift as he scrolled through the evidence. I expected shock, maybe even a flash of denial. Instead, I saw a profound, bone-deep weariness. He leaned back, his chair groaning in protest, and dragged a hand down his face. "I knew it," he said, his voice a low rasp. I had a feeling it was him. He proceeded to tell me that Ethan was the CEO's nephew, a fact that suddenly explained years of him skating on the edge of trouble. He'd been at the center of other, unfortunate situations over the years, promising projects that suddenly hit inexplicable roadblocks, high-performing teams that dissolved into conflict. But Ethan was always so slick, so well-liked, and there was never anything concrete to pin on him. Management had always given him the benefit of the doubt. "That doesn't change anything," I said, my voice sharp and clear. "He tried to ruin this project. He tried to ruin my career. I'm not letting family connections sweep this away. I want a meeting, not a quiet chat with HR. I want a full divisional post-mortem. I want every person who worked on this project, every manager who watched us struggle, to be in that room and see this evidence." Mr. Davenport looked at me, a flicker of something new, respect in his eyes. He gave a slow, deliberate nod. "You've earned it, Sarah. You'll get your meeting." The day of the meeting, the air in the main conference room was electric with tension. My entire team was there, along with leads and managers from across the division. And seated at the polished table, directly across from me, was Ethan. He was the picture of relaxed confidence, leaning back in his chair and making small talk with the person next to him, a casual smirk playing on his lips. He looked like a man who thought he was attending my public execution. His smirk didn't last long. I began my presentation not with an accusation, but with a tribute. I praised my team, highlighting their brilliance and their tireless dedication in the face of adversity. Then, methodically, I began to lay out the timeline of our project's inexplicable failures. With each click of the remote, another piece of the ugly puzzle fell into place. I showed the corrupted design files, the sabotaged code, the deleted database. Then, I overlaid the server access logs. A quiet murmur rippled through the room as one name appeared again and again in the access logs, glowing on the screen: Ethan M. I saved my final act for the grand finale. "And that brings us to this past Sunday," I announced, my voice ringing with cold confidence. I showed them the bait. I showed them the log of Ethan accessing it from his home IP address. I showed the attempted copy to an external drive. I showed the subsequent deletion. My final slide was just a single, stark screenshot of the log entry, blown up to fill the entire 10-foot screen. The room fell into a stunned, absolute silence. You could have heard a contact lens drop. Ethan's handsome, tanned face had turned a blotchy, sickly shade of pale. His easy charm had vanished, replaced by the wild-eyed look of a trapped animal. Mr. Davenport's voice cut through the silence like a shard of glass. "Ethan, is there anything you would like to say?" He tried. His voice, usually so smooth, was a ragged, cracking thing. This is a setup. It's completely fabricated. She's framing me because her project was failing and she needed a scapegoat. He jabbed a trembling finger in my direction. She's the one who manipulated these logs. It's all a lie. But his performance was falling flat. The evidence was too methodical, too overwhelming. His charisma had shattered, revealing the desperate, whining fraud underneath. As he flailed, something amazing happened. A senior engineer from a different team, a quiet woman named Maria, cleared her throat. "Actually," she said, her voice soft but steady. Every eye in the room turned to her. Ethan looked like he'd been shot. "A year ago," Maria went on, her confidence growing with each word, "I was the lead on the mobile app beta. We had the most bizarre issues. Critical user feedback would just vanish from the server before our weekly reviews. Demo builds would inexplicably fail to compile. We never found the cause and had to push the launch by 3 months." She took a breath and looked directly at Ethan. "Now that I think about it, you were always around, Ethan, offering to help with our promotional materials. It was as if a dam had broken." A project lead from the infrastructure team, a man named Robert, leaned forward on his elbows. "Hold on. My team had a server migration 2 years ago that went completely off the rails. Cost us a week of downtime. We wrote it off as a freak hardware failure, but the diagnostics never made sense." He stared at Ethan for a long moment. "You had just transferred to marketing from our department. You still had your old admin credentials for another month." One by one, others began to speak. A chain reaction of shared memory and sudden, dawning clarity. A litany of mysterious setbacks, of corrupted data, of projects that went sideways for no reason, all stretching back for years. And the one common thread, the one person always lurking in the background with a helpful smile and a sympathetic ear, was Ethan. He had been a cancer in the company, picking his targets carefully, rising stars, high-profile projects, inflicting just enough damage to make them stumble, while he remained the universally liked guy from marketing. He tried a desperate, hollow laugh. "Oh, come on, this is a witch hunt, you can't be serious." He swiveled his pleading eyes to Mr. Davenport. "Sir, you can't possibly believe this." Mr. Davenport stood up, his expression grim. "Ethan, I don't just believe it. I am ashamed that we enabled it for so long. You had every opportunity here. You threw it all away." The fight finally drained out of him. He slumped in his chair, his face a mask of pathetic self-pity. "I just wanted them to see me," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "I've been here 7 years. I watched all of you get the promotions, the big projects. I do good work, but it's never the great work. I just thought, if everyone else stumbled a little, maybe I'd finally look better in comparison. I just wanted someone to see what I was worth." There it was, the petty, grubby jealousy that had fueled his entire campaign. I felt nothing for him, not pity, not even anger anymore. Just the clean, quiet relief of vindication. For months, I had doubted my own competence, my own sanity. I wasn't the problem. And now, everyone knew it. Mr. Davenport didn't hesitate. "Ethan, gather your personal effects. An HR representative will escort you. As of this moment, your employment is terminated for cause." For a fleeting second, raw fury flashed in Ethan's eyes. But it was extinguished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a hollow, defeated emptiness. He stood, pushed in his chair with a quiet scrape, and walked out of the room without another word, leaving a profound silence in his wake. In the weeks that followed, the company formally investigated, and the full extent of his sabotage across multiple teams was uncovered. The CEO himself called me to personally apologize, both for his nephew's actions and for the management's blindness. With Ethan's toxic presence gone, Project Odyssey didn't just recover, it thrived. We smashed our revised deadlines. The final product was a triumph, and the client was thrilled. My reputation wasn't just restored, it was forged in fire. About a month later, Mr. Davenport called me into his office again. "Sarah, your resilience and integrity under that kind of pressure were extraordinary," he said. "You didn't just save your project. You exposed a systemic problem we failed to see. That's not management, that's leadership." He slid a formal offer letter across the desk. It was a promotion to Director of Digital Strategy. Ethan had craved recognition so desperately. And in the end, he got it. He became a company legend, a cautionary tale of a man consumed by his own envy. And I got the recognition he wanted, not by tearing others down, but by rebuilding everything he tried to burn to the ground.